Hi, my name is Anjoy Sabuga. I'm a teacher and a curriculum developer. I'm also the CEO of Peer Publishers and Consultants, which is a startup publishing firm. We are a partner with the education sector. And the most exciting thing about Peer Publishers and Consultants is that we are the first youth young woman-owned publishing firm in Kenya with curriculum materials approved for use in schools in Kenya. I'm excited about the role that I'm playing right now and making a contribution to the education sector, and I can say that I'm living my dream. Growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher, and this I can trace back to when I was growing up. You see, when a child comes from a vulnerable background, knowing that I'd lost both my parents by the age of 9 years, for me the school became the safest place I could go to. So every time I walk into a school, I do not fail to realize that this could be the safest place for some children, and their teachers could be the only adults who are constant in their life. Realizing the role that my teachers played, I wanted to be this kind of person. Yes, I was that for a while when I started my career. Then two instances changed my life forever, and that put me in this place. In one school year, during one particular time, I lost two learners. I lost one learner to HIV-related TB. So we buried her and came to school. So during that school term, I also lost another learner to teenage pregnancy, and she was told to leave school, and she packed out of school. And thinking about these two instances, one thing that happens to teachers and to classes and school community is that when we lose one of us, when you lose a learner, you actually go through the period of grief, because this is someone that you've known, someone you see every day throughout the year. So coming to an empty desk, realizing we used to sit here and they're no longer with you, there's some sort of impact it has to you as a teacher. And especially the fact that now you have to support other learners, come to terms with this loss. And then again, they're the parents who used to be your parents because they have a child in your school, in your class. So you some sort of become support for all these people who are looking up to you. And I remember during this particular time, my learners asked very difficult questions. So one afternoon I came to class and they told me, "Oh, teacher, today we don't want to learn." And I was like, "You guys, we have a double literature lesson." So but they told me, no, we just want to talk about our classmates today, once and for all, because there are many things, there are many questions that we have, and we really hope you can help us answer these questions. So I'm an emotional person, so I knew that if I started on this subject, I am going to cry. So I told my learners, no, we are not going to do this. This is not the day for it. And so they told me, no, teacher, we have to do this. We have to talk about this. So I called the guidance and counseling teacher and I told her what's happening. And so she gave us, so she was aware, so that in case we wailed, all of us wailed through the school, at least someone knows what's happening. So we went to this corner in the school field, the farthest corner, and we talked about their friend that they had just lost. And most of their questions only bordered around, they asked questions that were very key. They told me three things. One, they said that we usually hear other people saying that our classmates had AIDS. So now HIV, so had AIDS, and she was on some medication, and she used to hide this medication and take it. And then they wanted to know, if there is no cure for AIDS, why was she even taking this medication? And if she was taking medication, why is it that she never got well? She kept being out of school, constantly unwell, constantly away. So I honestly didn't have answers to those questions. They wanted to understand HIV, and they wanted to understand HIV treatment and care. So what we did that afternoon was to just talk about the grief, talk about the classmate that we just lost, and I told them I'll get back to them about the answers and the questions that they were asking. That evening I went and called a doctor friend of mine. I explained to him what was happening. So he told me, yes, I actually have a lot of material on HIV. Send me your email address. And he sent me a lot of information on HIV. Most of it was basically on treatment, and it had all these medical jargons that I could not understand. So I called him and told him, I think you sent me the wrong information. So I said, no, I sent you the right information. You wanted to know about HIV treatment? Yes, that is HIV treatment. I told him, I'm a teacher, I can't understand this, but I need to understand for my students. So he actually did tell me if I have time, we could meet over the weekend, and then he could take me through that particular segment. So those 2 hours that we spent together over the weekend, he actually did break it down for me in a way that I understood and took notes. And so I shared with my students. And so as we were coming to terms with that, and now I had just addressed this issue, then one evening as I'm going home, one girl, she ran after me, and I was about to get to the gate. Then she tells me, no, teacher, I have to talk to you, and it's urgent. So I go like, we can't do this tomorrow because I was heading home. She goes like, no, I really want you to talk to me. I'm so scared. I need someone to talk to. So I went back, and we ended up having 2 hours of a conversation. And in this conversation, she confided in me and told me that she was 4 months pregnant. And apart from me, the other person who knew was her mother. So when she told me that, I remembered our school and what it is that we do when a girl is pregnant. I remember that they are taken through a pregnancy test, and then when someone is found pregnant, they pack their things and they are taken home using the school van, and they're accompanied by the principal and the nurse and the matron. So that was it. I mean, there was no room for anything else. So here is a student crying and telling me that I'm the only hope she has if she wants to remain in school. And then she also told me that this pregnancy was as a result of rape. I remember going home that evening, and I think it was one of the biggest tests of my life, because here you are, I was just a young teacher. I was not yet employed by TSC. I was still on BOD terms. And I didn't have much role to play in the school then. So I called the mother of this girl that evening, and we spoke for long hours. I went to bed way past midnight. And she told me so the following morning she would come to school, and then we'd talk about this. So she came the following morning, and we talked, and I assured the mom that I would try and do something. And I even talked to her about the return to school policy, and I told her, yeah, actually we can talk to other teachers, we can see what can be done. So I actually gave her an assurance. So because I needed to find other teachers who could also support this, so I reached out to one of my colleagues, very close, still a close friend to date. So I told her my predicament. Then she told me, Anne, do you realize you're not the only one facing this issue? She told me, actually, in my class and another teacher's class, in her class there was one girl, and in another class there was another girl. So technically we are looking at 3 girls in the school pregnant at this particular time. So now I thought, wow, we actually have a force. We actually can petition for this. These girls can stay in school. And it made a lot of sense because of this return to school policy. So we had our own small meeting, the 3 teachers who were affected. So we agreed that we indeed were going to talk to the administration about this issue. But then again, the major challenge is that we had about 1 week for the girls to go home. So there was a weekend in between, then the next week they were breaking off for half term. So this weekend, usually we have a lot of workload, marking and submitting results so that we can compile their marks as they go home with their first CAT exam. So I was home that weekend because I was teaching 4 classes then. So I had 4 classes to do my own marking and present the results. So on Monday morning, I had the first lesson. So I come to class, and there was this empty desk in front of me again. So I have 2 empty desks in my class. Then I asked the other learners, where is she? So they actually told me, oh, she was sent home over the weekend. I'm like, which day? Like, yesterday, Sunday. That moment when I heard that, I was crushed. And for the first time, I realized I can't do this. I had seen that there was a huge gap in terms of in the publishing sector, especially in the provision of life skills. And then I could not understand why we have policies, but we do not have correspondent curriculum materials. See, curriculum materials are the most important factor when it comes to rolling out a curriculum. This is because as teachers, we teach the curriculum. Okay, we teach books that are in the syllabus. So if a particular issue is not addressed well in the syllabus and in the curriculum, so you can't teach it, because teaching equals to assessment, equals to looking at the learning outcomes. So until you are able to do that, it becomes difficult. So when I left classroom teaching, I started doing freelance. I talked to my doctor friend who had taken me through my initial training on HIV treatment and care, and it happened that they wanted to engage someone from the education sector to help them understand how to work with the education sector, especially because they were also facing the challenges of young people living with HIV in schools, who also needed to be traced, who needed to be looked for, and because there was a clear need to build psychosocial support structures in schools. So I came in and we started working together. I started building my capacity around that area and gathering information and going to trainings. So finally I had a pamphlet, I had materials that I could share with my colleagues in the teaching fraternity. I would give talks and everything. And then in 2015, I spoke to a friend of mine actually spoke to me one time, and he asked me, and I see you doing a lot of stuff with the education sector. How come? So I explained to him the challenge that is there, the challenge that I noted, and he asked me, have you ever considered translating your books into a textbook? And yes, I thought about that for a long time, but I didn't have the means to be able to do that, because again, when we talk about resources and all that. But either way, I began my journey. So I wrote a letter to the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development in 2016 and expressed my interest of bringing my book for review. And then I began the process. It has taken me it took me over 3 years to have my first book, The Peer Knowledge and Life Skills, approved for schools. And for me, being part of this journey, coming to this point, I am excited because since then to date, The Peer is the only book in the curriculum that talks about HIV treatment and care, talks about sexual and gender-based violence, rape and post-rape medical emergency services. I talk about sexual and reproductive health in these books. I get excited when they're reading my books and then they realize, oh, actually, this is the author of this book. We're actually talking to an author, and she's a young person, so it's exciting for them. And it's humbling when they totally forget about my presence and then they start engaging with my materials, asking questions, And then I've had very good reviews and feedback from teachers, from learners. It's about my books, how my books are helping the guidance and counseling departments. And so now I know the whole of this journey has never been in vain. One thing that I've learned in the past few years is that most of the learners who report a negative outcome out of their treatment and care report that they face high levels of stigma in school, and that sometimes when they are given their medication to carry to school, they are not able to take it because of the structures in school, because sometimes they need to keep their medication with the nurse, with the school nurse or the school matron. And then we have all these disclosure issues. And also because of stigma, they do not want anyone to know that they are living with HIV. I've seen that with the strengthened school-based health strategies, schools have been able to support learners living with HIV, achieve viral suppression, stay on treatment and care, and get a positive outcome out of their treatment. I've also seen schools that have learners who are on TB treatment being supported to come to the end of the course of treatment, and also where cases of TB infection have been reported. We've also been able to see that schools are able to contain that and to prevent more TB infections. That is the power of information and the kind of testimonies that we've been able to get. Even as we talk about teenage pregnancy, we are not talking about the fact that some of the teenage pregnancy cases are as a result of rape, and by fact that young people do not yet know that they have a window of seeking healthcare treatment after rape. When you meet a girl later into a few months of pregnancy and you are counseling them, talking to them and trying to find out what happened and where they are, and then they disclose that they were raped and they didn't know what to do, so they kept quiet, and then now they're revealing it now, and yet nothing can be done. It goes a long way to see that the impact that lack of information is having. So I believe that for us to advance SDG 4 in ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and also promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all, then merging health and education is very important, because learners spend quite a long time in school. So we need to empower teachers. We need to provide knowledge and information. We also need to be able to build capacities within our schools so that we are able to respond effectively to the needs of young people. One thing I see about materials on HIV that are in our schools and in our libraries, most of them are outdated. I remember seeing that most of them were published in the 90s. And so they have these gruesome photos and they have drawings that are petrifying. So you find books that talk about AIDS skills, and yet you have learners living with HIV who are reading those same books, who are in these same schools. What does that do to them? We need learners to realize that they can live with HIV. And over the years that I've worked, I can talk about 3 outstanding cases of young people that I have met, that we've nurtured through schools and through their colleges. So 3 of them, 2 of them I met them in 2014, and one I met her in 2015. So I'd gone to their school and we had talked about HIV treatment and care, putting in structures. They were able to be supported through their high school education. They've gone through university, and one of them graduated last year, and 2 of them are still in college. So that goes a long way to show you that we can actually support learners, and that learners living with HIV can have better health outcome if they are effectively supported. And that is the opportunity that I would like organizations working in the area of HIV treatment and care to take up that challenge and that opportunity, to involve teachers more, to work with the education sector more, if we are going to reach more adolescents and young people. Someone would ask me, why is HIV a very important topic of discussion? Kenya is number 4 globally in terms of HIV prevalence. And recently we've seen that the new number of HIV infections occurring among young people are actually high. And teachers and schools are now facing unprecedented challenges, because today teachers are meeting learners who are living with HIV. Teenage pregnancy is also high. We have TB infection cases in schools. We used to think that schools are the safest place. Today, we have incidences of sexual and gender-based violence, coming from schools. We've seen learners who actually die in school, and there are many accusations. Is it an unfortunate time to be alive as a teacher? I would say no, because it then gives us an opportunity to be able to develop solutions to meet the challenges that the education sector is facing today. And I believe that teachers and educators have solutions to the issues that are facing the education sector today. And most times, teachers are unable to make scalable impact, or their work is not felt, because mostly they are faced with the challenge of lack of resources to be able to scale up their inventions and interventions on a global or national scale, so that other people are able to see that. So I never really quit teaching. So I teach in a number of schools. I go to schools, I get feedback on my books. I work with a number of organizations that are implementing adolescent-focused project. So we are continuously improving the materials. I'm also working with a number of teachers who are interested in curriculum development. So as we move forward, we intend to have more materials addressing major and many key issues. So we have authors on board, we have organizations. So partnerships are key for us. And so we're looking for partnership to be able to increase our impact, to be able to write more materials and give free books to schools that are in need of this material. Because I believe that I belong to the generation of teachers and educators who will have immense impact in ending the three epidemics that affect Africa, that is HIV, TB, and malaria. And we are doing this through the classroom, through the curriculum material, and teachers are instrumental in being able to do this.